I get asked all the time, what is a vigilante? What does it mean to be a vigilante? And so to explain that, I'm just going to kind of explain where the vigilantes came from. When I started the group, I honestly thought there was going to be like 10 or 20 people who really like the scrap that would want to be part of the behind the scenes, helping pick out the guests and make the questions. And I never dreamed that the vigilantes would grow into what it has grown into. Over 700 like-minded souls. If you're a vigilante, you are never alone. We have members from across the country. We have members from across the globe. And it's just amazing what it's become. If you're in there, then you get to be in the Discord. And the Discord is where we do all of our discussions and people go live and they talk and they ask questions. And we have a channel for bitching and moaning, for presenting classes. It's amazing the fellowship that is involved in being a vigilante. And it's not just that, there's so many other benefits. You get access to the vigilante only swag shop. You get the 15% discount on all merch from Firehouse Vigilance. You get the after parties. You get the vigilante get-togethers when we're all at the same place and we get together and we raise a glass and do a toast and have the vigilante creed. You get the vigilante coin when you hit your 1-year anniversary with your number. The fireaways, the forums, the archives, all of the quarterly projects that are coming that you get to be a part of and get to be behind the scenes on. It's grown into something bigger than I ever imagined. And I want people to know about it. I want people to be a part of it. If you're not a vigilante, why not? I don't know how big it could be. I don't know. I mean, the vigilantes are where the work is at. They're the ones who are getting stuff done. And it's phenomenal to be a part of it. I wanted to get on here and explain where it started, how it came to be, and ask you, if you're not a vigilante, why not? Go to patreon.com/thevigilantes. That's where you sign up. It is $5 a month. I mean, you can't even get a cup of coffee for that anymore. $5 a month and you get to be a part of this unbelievable group. Go to patreon.com, sign up, become a vigilante, and I will see you on the Discord.
Introducing the Affordable Standpipe Prop, another innovative solution by Affordable Drill Towers. The Affordable Standpipe Prop is a realistic training prop that allows you to conduct real-world training in your classroom and flow water in your parking lot. Crafted with efficiency and affordability in mind, the Affordable Standpipe Prop is designed to meet the needs of engine company training. We took the fire suppression system of a 7-story building, compressed it into 4.5 feet, and mounted it horizontally on our proprietary cart. For durability, the manifold is constructed of 4-inch Schedule 40 galvanized pipe with 7 2.5-inch outlets. Enjoy effortless maneuverability from 4 heavy-duty casters, 2 that are fixed and 2 that swivel with double locking brakes makes wheeling this prop a breeze. Yet, the locking casters prevent movement when flowing water. The entire unit is sandblasted. An epoxy powder coat finish is applied, followed by a red top powder finish. 2 reinforced shelves allow for transport and storage of fire hose, appliances, and tools. The basic model includes a 2.5-inch Siamese fire department connection, 6 2.5-inch angle hose valves, a system pressure gauge, and a sprinkler head with a control valve and water motor gong. The 7th outlet comes capped. The Affordable Standpipe Prop is available with your choice of Fireground adjustable pressure reducing valves from Elkhart Brass, Zurn, and Giacomini. You can also add the Dixon PRD, a screw-on adjustable pressure restricting device, a 7th standard hose valve, an additional sprinkler head, or the optional speed swivel appliance that can be used on the FDC. We pressure test the Affordable Standpipe Prop to 300 PSI so that you can pump realistic fireground pressures. If you need custom threads, a specific FDC, have any questions, or need a quote, just let us know. Elevate your training regimen with the Affordable Standpipe Prop, setting a new standard in fire department training excellence. Reach us at 84455 Towers or info@affordabledrilltowers.com.
Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance. It is weekly scrap number 321. My guest tonight is Brendon McDonough. He is the lone survivor of the Yarnell Hill fire tragedy, where 19 Granite Mountain hotshots lost their lives. He carries their legacy forward as a firefighter, founder of Holdfast Recovery, and co founder of Anchor Point Recovery, sharing a story of faith, resilience, and turning pain into purpose. I have been looking forward to this conversation. It's been a work in progress to get Brendon to come on, and I'm excited for the conversation and the questions from the audience. And welcome, Brendon, to scrap number 321. My brother, Brendon McDonough.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, Corley. Yeah, super excited, man. Even just the connection here of JK, right? He taught my 1 and 2 when I was 17, and I've looked up to that man since then, and there's so many other further connections through the honor guard and so much that we'll get into. But yeah, super stoked on this.
No, and JK, he's referencing Jeremiah King for those who are listening. And if you've been to conferences where he's attended, uh, he's passionate, and he's
Yeah.
also the number two. If anybody ever wonders who the number two vigilante coin belongs to, it is his, and so he is number two. But all that being said, is there anything I missed in the intro? Anything you want to add, or because it's very short and succinct, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, married, 3 beautiful kids,
Right on.
sober, sobriety, been doing that for a little over 8 years now. Faith,
Congratulations.
is massive for me. Relationship with God is huge. There's a long list to that intro, but I think, trying to keep it short and concise is good, but definitely want to give, shout out to those who love me and what's gotten me here for sure.
Right on, right on. Audience, get your questions primed and ready for Brendon and myself. It's gonna be interesting scrap, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, let's talk about those beautiful sponsors, and let's get that done so we can get to scrapping. When it comes to building your perfect attack package, you can't just slap any nozzle on any hose and hope for the best. That's a recipe for failure. At Snaptight Hose, they are not just trying to sell you hose. They are there to make sure you get the right hose paired with the right nozzle for your crew and conditions. Their team of experienced reps knows their stuff inside and out, and they're ready to help. No ego, no judgment, because knowledge is power. And at Snaptight Hose, they bring both. Visit snaptighthose.com to connect with a rep and start building your ideal hose and nozzle package today. Affordable Drill Towers, on a mission to bring you cost-effective and versatile training props like the Affordable Bailout Prop, which allows you to practice window bailouts, ladder bailouts, and ladder high point rescues. They also make the Affordable Standpipe Prop, which you can roll into the classroom for standpipe theory and then roll it into the parking lot and pump realistic flows and pressures. Of course, their mainstay, the Affordable Drill Tower, comes in several configurations and standard with a standpipe system. Choose from 1 or 2 sets of stairs integrated into your existing Connex boxes for multi-story access or freestanding on a slab. All models NFPA 1402 compliant and gain you ISO credit. The only thing that you can't do on an affordable drill tower is live fire training. Call Steve 844-55-TOWER or drop an email to info@affordabledrilltowers.com. Firefighter safety and accountability starts with being able to quickly find and identify individual firefighters operating on the fire ground. Identifier safety combines the best in photoluminescent materials for durable firefighter identification solutions that can glow for up to 20 hours. No switches, no batteries, which means being able to rapidly identify firefighters by name, unit, or assignment, even under hot fire conditions. All specifically designed and tested for the rigors of the job. Be seen, on scene. Identifiersafety.com. And I love new sponsors, and this one is Relentless Rescue Solutions. I got to meet these guys at FDIC, and it was awesome. It is a firefighter-owned startup with a patented rescue device designed to save lives. They need your support to bring the first Thomas Life capsules to the field, providing victims with unmatched thermal, toxicity, and transit protection. Join them on this life-saving mission. Learn more at www.relentlessrescue, that's relentlessrsq.com, and follow them at relentless on @relentlessrsq on Instagram. Relentless Rescue Solutions, redefining rescue to save lives. And there we go. The sponsors are done. Brendon has been patient, and we're ready to talk about it. And man, I just want to kick it off and go right to getting back into the fire service at Prescott uh, and you're about to complete. You tell me where you're at in the journey and kind of give me the rundown because that's where I want to start this story.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. For so right now I'm sitting at 9 months on probation.
Okay.
God willing, I'll finish a year. I keep being told I might. So, it's been amazing. Looking at getting back into the fire service, there was so much into it of mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. There's so many conversations. I probably spent the better part of 2 years really looking at the pros and cons, preparing for it, trying to make sure that it's exactly what I wanted to do and could do. And a part of that is coming out of the tragedy. It was a goal of mine to get back in the fire service, and mentally, I just wasn't there after that. And so, through building treatment centers, finding sobriety, finding faith, and really a strong foundation of who I am, and couldn't have done it without a lot of people being an influence in that. I was able to make a return to the fire service, and a lot of that goes to who Prescott Fire is and the leadership and the firefighters that are there. A lot of conversations, a lot of oral board prep, you know, uh, a lot of just deep insight within myself. Back when that tragedy happened, one of the things that kind of didn't sit well with me was I seen a psychiatrist, and one of the statements was, "Hey, not fit for duty," and that kind of that kind of didn't sit well with me for quite a few years. And as I was getting older and felt accomplished within starting holdfast recovery and being a part of another treatment center, I really started to look back of like, hey, what in life would I regret not doing? I've been able to do a lot of things in my life. Been able to speak on different platforms, share Christ. Been able to impact people's life within mental health and addiction. And the fire service kept ringing true of like, hey, I went through the academy at 17 in college. Right out of high school. It was something I talked to my superintendent, my captain about. That season in 2013 about progressing and taking steps towards. It was something after the tragedy. One of our now battalion chiefs heavily supported me in, getting back into the education piece that I needed, and so it felt like it was unfinished. It felt like something that had a deeper call to me, and that was a part of the new fire chief. Meeting with him and getting connected with him and learning about his vision for the fire department and where he wanted to take it. And then, over a year or two, really watching him execute those things that he said he wanted to do, and watching the members, find excitement in that, as well as, just expansion right within our community that's been long overdue, that the community supports, and then they're 100% behind. It's like, man, it is primed for me personally. What I saw as a really good career of training, education, the opportunity to move up and learn from some people that I highly respect. And so, been on for, yeah, 9 months. um they switch you at 6 months, so you're at one station on probation for 6 months and another for six, and they have probationary testing throughout that process, like many departments. And had some great influencers and great crew members to be able to teach me that. And for me, it's been amazing being back in the fire service, but the personal connection, I love connecting with people. I'm a people person. I'm very extroverted in many ways, and sometimes I have to be reminded when to shut up. That's probably my biggest struggle on probation, to be honest, is like I love to talk, I love to ask questions, I love to conversate. And my first captain, his joke was like, "Hey, 3 a day, man. Like that's what you got."
You got 3 questions a
And
day?
I'd eat, like I'd cook over those like easily, and that wasn't even training related. That was just like, "Hey, 3 questions outside of the fire department is is what you got." And he's joking,
Right,
but
right.
that was always kind of the running joke. And finding that balance. But it's been great. That captain, the first captain I had, I was sharing with you earlier, he was on the crew, and he was there when the guys passed. And he had his own journey through that. And he unfortunately lost his nephew too, that was in the fire department as well later down the road. And so he has so much insight and knowledge into tragedy within the fire service
Sure.
that it just happened too. It wasn't I mean, it was obviously intentional to put me there, but I think the deeper intentionality of the connection we had was very powerful. My engineer was on the crew as well, and he's been with the department for well over, 2 decades. And so having that experience, my firefighter, I went to my senior guy, went to high school with him, and he has got a lot of experience, was around for all of this. And so to be able to have men in those seats kind of guiding me and directing me was phenomenal. I felt very honored to have them, and trying to figure out my way on probation. It is a game. It really is a game, and you know, it's something I had to learn really quick, and was told many different things, and you really don't know what you're getting into till you get on, right? One time the engineer was trying to teach me something. He's like, "Hey, take a seat," and I went to go sit in the recliner. He's like, "No, no, 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 we don't do that. There's a chair over there," and I didn't even think about it, right? And there's just those little pieces of being on probation, and cleaning the table, right? But never grab a man's plate because he could take it to the sink himself, and I learned after asking 2 or 3 times, that plate is his and he's taking it to the sink, and I'm not, that's not
Right.
mine to take. And it's been amazing. I've had so many moments of closure, to be honest, and so many thoughts of what if, what could, going back to the academy of like, hey, what am I going to do in our first live burn? you know we do a wildfire class academy essentially within our 15-week academy. It's like, what am I to do when we start talking about this and start having
Right.
conversations? And we do a live burn. What is that going to feel like? And to have the men in place that were there during that time that had been so close to that tragedy too was something really special for me. you know um Made me get emotional thinking about it, right? Of like
Sure.
trying to make those men and women proud, right? Of like, hey, that's a Prescott firefighter. That is someone that is, experienced something. And I knew, going back, I looked at testing for different departments. I did pros and cons, and I felt like going back to Prescott was A, going home. It's where I live, but B, where I wasn't gonna get any special treatment.
Right.
I was going to be treated just as a recruit, just as a probie. And the conversations may be different, right? Just because of personal relationships, but the treatment was the same, I feel like. And that's what I wanted, and that's what I asked for, and I felt like that's what I got.
That's what you
But
got.
to be able to graduate that fire academy and have the training captain who I've looked up for a long time is kind of one of those guys in our fire department that a lot of people strive to be like. um you know he's a man of few words, but the few words of, hey, I'm proud of you after graduating, like that hit me. That meant a lot. And uh one of my brothers who passed away, Kevin Wojak, his dad was able to pin me for that. We've built an amazing relationship since then. And I was sharing with you earlier, Wade Parker, who passed away, his little brother is a grown man now, his wife and multiple kids. And he was in the academy with me, and to go through that with him,
Wow.
was something really special. And I think, not to isolate us within that group, because there's some amazing men and women who are in that academy, but I think for those getting to instruct us too, I think they might have found some closure and peace and seeing us, thriving,
Right.
right? Thriving in something that, in short, took so much from us. Um, and it's been that journey, right? Of like, getting back, I had to go get cleared by a psychiatrist. I had to re-dig up a lot of stuff and talk with my own counselor. And, to get that all clear was amazing,
No, I can only
to
imagine,
be
yeah,
able.
because to go from that not fit for duty that you said, actually stung you wore pretty heavily, and then to get the all clear,
Yeah.
years later. No,
Yeah. It was,
absolutely.
it was something special. And, talking with my wife of like, hey, how do you feel about this? Like, we had met after June 30th, and so she has a different experience from that, but she experienced a lot of, the darkest times I had, right? That we're going to talk about in this of like, what are her fears? What are her concerns? And at
Sure.
the time, my daughter who was 2 who experienced this tragedy, this gets me, like she's 13, already getting emotional.
All right.
And I gotta go, I gotta go ask her, like, hey, are you okay with this?
Right.
Like, are you okay with, dad going back in the fire service? Does that sit well with you? And she she had a really healthy response, and she's like, yeah, it does, but like, the only thing is like when you post pictures of me on social media, like my friends, they see it because she didn't have social media at the time, and
Right.
she's like, you got to post better pictures. And
Yeah.
that was like after the whole long hour conversation we had.
Sure.
But then, my 5-year-old son who hears about this tragedy but doesn't really understand or isn't getting it, like him through this whole process, trying to comprehend it and wrap his mind around it of like he said something to me this last week that was, a pretty big eye opener. And he was like, structure firefighting is safer than wildland firefighting, right, Dad? And I'm trying to protect my 6-year-old son, but I'm trying to be honest with them,
Sure. Sure.
of like, hey, there are dangers, and we train hard, and we protect each other, we look after each other, and we do put ourselves in dangerous situations. But at the end of the day, the job is everyone goes home, and um, it's been all these emotions, right? Of like trying to figure that out. And I remember my first live burn, like that excitement came over, like this overwhelming feeling of like I am where I belong, And it's not that anything I've done in the past wasn't where I should have been, but right in that moment, I am exactly where I need to be.
Yeah.
I'm exactly what I've prepared to be. I'm exactly where those around me who have supported me, poured into me, want to see me at. And I am at that point of, you know, hey, I can do this. Like there's gonna be stuff, I've had a handful of calls over the last 9 months that have been eye openers, right? One in particular, there was a fatality fire that I was on, and that was big. That was
Yeah.
big for anyone on it,
Sure.
and we've done AARs after it and come to the conclusion of, the best job that could have been done was done. And, talked with some peers, talked with my counselor. I promised her and promised my family and those around me that if I go back, that, I will have regular check-ins with my counselor and make sure that, I'm doing the right thing and leading by example too, because it's this weird dichotomy of being on probation, but being, Brennan Donut McDonough, right? Of like, I want to practice what I preach, and I want
Right.
to, I want to speak truth into the lividity of mental health and what we're facing. And it's been amazing,
Good. No, I love hearing that.
I was sharing with you, one moment that I didn't think was going to happen as soon as it did was, during the tragedy, we had so many departments from all over the state come and backfill stations so our members could grieve. But honestly, I guess maybe more importantly at the time, the job at hand was to be there for the families. And so the members of our department were put in unique situations to be liaisons for 19 families, and one including myself. And so 20 of them in funerals. And that was a heavy process, and that's something I share so much gratitude over, and was so impactful and blown away at how the fire service comes together. Of like, they came in, they had a liaison for them, and they scanned their radios, and they got set up, and they ran calls in our community for weeks on end. And 2 weeks ago, I was able to reciprocate that with Timber Mesa Fire Department. They had lost two, unfortunately and tragically, in a vehicle accident. And
Oh,
some of our members were able to be up there to backfill, to be for honor watch, honor guard, and to see that come into play, and to play just a tiny role for that. in running calls in their community to I don't want to say repay that debt because it's not even a debt. It's like the fire service is just done. It's just there. It just happens. There's no transaction. There's no. It's just what is in us and what we do, and it's ingrained in policy and procedure
Right.
down to the core of our culture, right? And I think that's something that is strengthened who I want to be in the fire service of and what people think of me of like I want to keep that moving forward and I want to be a part of that future. And so this 9 months has been absolutely awesome. I remember my first wildfire was Father's Day morning, 4 a.m., right, within 5 miles of the station. I got my captain who at the time was running the wildland division, the portion of our department. I've got an engineer that was on some crews, did some time, and so it was different. Not digging line and running out hose, but now it's fired up. We
Right.
laid
Right.
out 900 feet of hose, caught this thing, before it spread into this community with mutual aid and the volunteer department that was up there and the Forest Service, and getting to see people that I haven't seen in over a decade, and getting to do it on the fire ground was pretty phenomenal, and
Right on.
um it's just powerful to get to like regain a part of myself, that I didn't get to choose when it stopped, right? And I get to
Right.
do it with people that are helping me do that, right? And it's oh man, it's like so fulfilling. It's so I can't put it into
No,
words
yeah,
of
you
like
you
this
yeah,
this
your
last
words are powerful, brother. They are.
yeah,
The failure of them almost is the power of it because it conveys the emotion of what you're talking about and the gravity of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It getting to remember one of my first calls, you know, and I'm not a recognition guy, but like some of the community saw me and I'm like carrying as much as I can out of the EMS cabinet, right? And we're going into a church and someone's like, "Hey, Brennan, we are so proud of you," right? Like, go get them, and it's like, man, I want that for every firefighter, I want that for every person to feel that sense of accomplishment. But it's like, man, I am here to serve my community and I'm here to try and make a difference,
Right.
in someone's darkest moments. And it's been so rad to get to be a part of that. And there's just like a waterfall, a fire hydrant of information to learn, you know and I never had any EMS experience and I was like, I'll never do that, and now I'm
Right.
coming to love it and coming to just find a new sense of passion and purpose
Right
within this
on.
is pretty rad. So yeah, that's been kind of like the last year, September. And even the graduation, people that this is super cool. People that were there for the memorials for my brothers that I've built relationships with that we have stayed in contact with since then. The guys from Milwaukee Fire, Bruce Brown, Nebraska, Lincoln. I mean, there's people from all over the country, right? But Matt Bryant, he's a captain in Milwaukee, and he showed up, man, with Bruce Brown and a few others from the crew that came down here, and they've been here for the 5 year, they've been here for the 10 year. Matt's dying to move here, and they were a part of the ceremony for my graduation. It's like, man, I feel so honored
Yeah.
and sometimes undeserving of this love and compassion. And my job is to try and like recirculate that, right?
Right on.
Give that back into somebody else. And there's a million of those moments that have happened over the time that I've been back on the job that I wish. And I've been kind of keeping a mental note, and I've been keeping, like little notes of those things that happened. Like I
Sure.
wrote this 2-page note in my iPhone of my first fire and like what it felt like to have my captain who was on the crew coming in on the truck, right? Like sitting back seat, getting dizzy. It's middle of night, 2 o'clock. I'm like trying to wake up, and to hear, the captain who was first in, who was on the crew, to hear his voice on the radio was like, man, this is time. Like it is time to get it. Like it is this is what I signed up for. This is, these are the men that I want and women I want to be around. This is how I want to do the job. I want to perform to the highest that I can. And I'm gonna do it. And I'm gonna give it everything I got. And I got to, go interior. We got to spray some water and couldn't see nothing. And I say like my goal is to be like a well-trained Malinois on the nozzle, right? Kyle Romagus, like dude's a genius, right?
Right on.
And my caps just got me, by my turnouts because I can't see anything. He's got the tick. He's like here, 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 and that's a rush. That's a rush, and the other
Absolutely.
crew in there, it's
I
just
one
like
thing I love
man,
is that you said you wrote down like a two-page note on your iPhone. I wish I could convey that to everybody to write down those memories while they're fresh and to keep
yeah.
I hope you continue to do that. But I can't
Oh, I
encourage
do. Yeah,
everybody to do that because you'll look back and time flies, first of all, and then you'll look back
it
and they
does.
will all blur. It will all blur, I promise you. Brendan, I
Yeah,
want to there's a lot of there's a few questions coming in from the audience, but I wanted to broach something real quick, which is I hadn't thought about this until we started talking, is the audience is super respectful and you
yeah.
have a big long story, and we started with the current, but basically if you could put down the I don't want to say ground rules, but basically what's on limits, what's off limits of what you want to talk about, so they can ask their questions respectfully without having to guess. If that makes sense what I'm asking you?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any off limits questions. I think for me is like when I do something like this, I just want to be intentional at that time of like the repetitive, right? Of like if you can if you can read about it or watch about it, um and there's things, you have to revisit, you have to
Sure.
talk about, but mental health, not off, addiction, not off, any of that tragedy, loss, it's not off. It's
Okay.
just if I feel like I've answered it in depth, I'll even like, hey, if you check out this article, or if you look
Sure.
at
No,
this, you can
absolutely.
find
Absolutely. So I
just
just
to
wanted to
keep
give
it
them
in
some
with,
direction. I wanted to give them some direction so they could ask great questions and throw it at you. Are you ready for your first
yeah,
question from the audience
I
with that
am.
segue?
Yep, I am.
Uh, I like this from Scott Hoke. He says, Brendan, I am a recovering alcoholic, sober for 2.5 years. Even still,
Awesome.
it gets tough to stay sober at times. How do you stay on the line and not fall off that wagon?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. For me, there's so much preparation that goes into it, right? It's for me personally, that's a relationship with God that I have to stay in tune to, right? Within my faith and my prayer and meditation, discipleship. That's also, I'm sitting here in my hands. I've got, which is wild, right? I've got my 2-year chip, right? And this is from Alcoholics Anonymous. I work a program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a sponsor that I contact, often. He probably wishes I called him more, but I go to meetings. I sponsor guys. I take them through the steps, and I try to be of service within that community itself. Right? We do a lot of service work, but it's just that continuous pursuit of trying to better myself. And so I surround myself with people that A, hold me accountable, that B, no, I can't drink. Like there's no version of Brendon McDonough, Brendan James McDonough, Donut. Some people call me Bronut. Like, there's no version of me that can have a sip of alcohol, right? Or a substance, even that in itself, right? I have an addictive mindset that, I can, abuse caffeine if I choose to. Some people in the fire department, it's sugar, right? Like, there's having ice cream every night and there's having a tub of ice cream every night, right? And so
Sure.
there's this like,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I've fallen into that, right? Of like, man, there's nothing like a good bowl of Bluebell, right? And but for me, it's staying in contact with those around me and just keeping that at the forefront of my mind of like, hey, what I have fought for and the damage it has caused, even though sometimes minimal, even in my alcoholism, I have some of the best memories. It's not worth the dark times. It's not worth the disconnect that I feel. Right. And so for me, addiction is a loss of connection and sobriety is connection. And I want connection. I need connection in my life. I think we're all designed from a biblical standpoint, from a scientific standpoint, for connection, you know, pro recreating, right? And all these different things that are there, but that depth of the relationships that I want to have with my wife, my children, the men and women around me that I call family, that I love, and those that I'm trying to make an impact for is not worth one drink. And I know why I want to drink. I want to drink to self-destruct, and the disease of addiction, the devil, however you per se it or persuade it or put it, is trying to convince me that if I join in, right, on having a drink, whether at home or with my peers, that I will then be connected, right? And that is the myth for me, not for everyone, but for
Sure.
me
Sure.
myself. And so I have to constantly be reminded. There's been tough times, man. There's been one of my best friends growing up. I went to his wedding, and like all my boys are having drinks, and one's in the fire service, a few of them in the military. Like, you get that alpha type
Oh
stuff
yeah.
going, and like you want to be a part of that, and they know and they support me in that, and they have those boundaries with me, and we are taking photos, and this was one of those kind of like, I gotta readjust, um one of those moments that in hindsight I can look back on, and that I'm grateful for, of like, we were taking pictures, and the photographer's like, hey, let's hold up some bottles of booze, and I'm like, hey, this isn't my wedding, I'm not here to, people wanna say, and I'm not gonna hold anything, but if they wanna hold something, and my buddy getting married was like, "Hey, my friend's sober, I'd rather not do that," and that was like, man, I surrounded myself with people, and I told him, I was like, "Hey, we could do the pictures." Like, "No, I don't want to."
Right.
I don't, like, we could still be us and have this photo without that, and, those are the men and women I try and surround myself around, that support that and understand, hey, if you want the best version of me, not trying to, burn the world down, like, it's not with alcohol, you're not going to get a funnier version of Donut being sober. You're just going to get an angrier, more depressed, more honestly violent person, in that piece. And I've had to do the work to come to find that. And so keeping my coping skills and my mechanisms, and ensuring that I'm talking about what I'm going through, like that call I described earlier. There's a day or two that went by that I was like, our peer support reached out, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm good, I'm processing it, and I needed to have further conversation with my sponsor, with my peers that were on that fire, with my counselor, to say, hey, am I processing this, or am I just putting up a blinder to this? And she's like, no, no, you're doing great. And you know, um, I have those checks and balances in place, and when someone comes to hold me accountable, whether I need it or whether it's valid, I still take it to heart, and I try and look at that and go, hey, is this something I really need to look at and work on? And so, having fun, being physically fit is big. Spending time with my family, remembering why. I can get caught in the busyness of life, and it's like, man, I got sober to enjoy this, not to be so busy I don't get to spend the time I want with people I love the most.
Right on.
Because I could do that. I can get into that chaos. So I hope that answers that. And
I think it's a beautiful
you know,
answer. No, and what I think everything happens for a reason. And Scott Hoke said he had 2.5 years sober, and then you held up your 2-year coin. I mean, I like I said, that's not an accident. So I think that's pretty damn
yeah,
cool. And congrats, Scott, on the 2.5 years.
yeah.
Relentless Rescue,
Congrats, man.
yes, Relentless Rescue Solutions coming at you with the next questions. Do you have aspirations to become a company officer in the future? Do you feel like that position carries more weight in your mind based on your past and what you've been through?
Yeah, that's a two-part question. I do have those aspirations. I and
Sure.
I'm slowly chunking away at them. But but truthfully too, is like one of the things I've been constantly reminded about, is like I need to be focused on the position right in front of me. And it's just like balance, right? Of,
Right.
hey, master the position that you're in right now, but also learn the one above you. And so, for me, company officer is definitely something that I see down the road, and taking the right process and steps to get there. And that's getting feedback from others of, hey, what do you think this looks like for me? What's a good path? I kind of had a similar conversations with my old captain, who's now my battalion chief, and my now captain within the last week of like, hey, once I'm off probation, there's some things that I'd like to accomplish. And what do you think would be beneficial out of these classes to take? And what is, where can I be utilized within the department too? I have this idea of what might be helpful, and they might have a different idea of like, hey, we
Sure.
could use somebody in this area. And so I keep that open mind. And so there's definitely that aspiration to move up and to promote, for me, the right reason, and most people do, but I want to earn that position. I think you earn that through your peers, and I think you earn that through, mastering the craft and remaining teachable, and also a constant pursuit of knowledge.
Love it.
And the second question of, does it carry weight because of my past? Was that kind of in
Yeah,
short the
roughly,
second
yeah.
part
Does
of
it
that?
do you feel like it carries more weight in your mind because of your, everything, the tragedy and everything you've been through?
I'd be lying if I said it didn't, right?
Sure.
But I feel like I have to keep a healthy balance with that, because that can play a role in my thought process, in my thinking. And so there has to be this respect with, you know, um, moving up, even in the position I'm in today, there has to be that understanding and that relationship with the past that, and I guess what I'm getting at there is, it was over a decade ago
Right.
that I had that fire experience, just from a peer experience standpoint, and so there's some things that I am relearning how to do, but also I am brand new to the structure world. I am a true probationary firefighter.
You're
There's
a
no
9-month
experience I have.
firefighter.
Yeah, there's no, prior experience within that realm. I have experience in decision making, from a business perspective. I have a lot of mental health experience of running a facility and, that kind of thing. But from the decision making that is within the fire service, it's very unique. And, I think I bring a lot of attributes to that in how I think things through. But, it does carry weight because there's a lot of people that want to see me succeed, and
Yeah,
I'm very
yeah.
grateful for that. And so I have to be very mindful of, how far I push and how hard I push, for certain things, because I can get caught in overdoing it, right? Or getting too far ahead of the goal, right? Where I'm missing what's right in front of me. And so I think I kind of answered that
No,
question.
no, it's
I
beautiful,
think it
beautiful answer. Very self-reflective and very honest. So, yeah, absolutely answered it beautifully. And thank you for the question. Coming at you, well, if I don't mess up the notes here that Sam's being awesome and pulling out from you guys. Sam is always watching. He's always grabbing your questions. Get your questions in if you want Brendon to answer them. And he gave you the guidelines, so get them in. Um, Kevin Brown wants to know, we struggle to bolster our local peer support program. What words of advice do you have that we can share with our members to break down the stigma of seeking help from local peers and or clinicians?
Yeah, that's a solid question. And I'll answer that in two parts personally, and then what I've seen other departments do. Um, Personally, how do you bolster your peer support team? You find members that are passionate about it, and sometimes that's tough to do. And you find members that have been through it, and you try and really give them that platform and that confidence in, hey, you might see it as just going to counseling or just, processing something, but to the next guy, it is completely unfathomable. Like, after the tragedy for me, they'd signed a workman's comp guy to me, and by the second session I was like, hey dude, because he'd come to my house, I was like, you got to go. He's like, oh, are we done, man? I'm like, we're done for good. Like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to, have these kind of conversations. I'm not here to read a poem, like, I don't know how that's gonna help me right now. And for me, it was 2 years after that I actually sought help, right, through therapy, and that was, like, my rock bottom of, like, "Man, I'm gonna end up killing myself, or I'm gonna end up dying due to this alcoholism," you know? Um, and so I think finding people that are willing to share and be
Mm,
open about that is so important. There's an amazing movement happening in the fire service and peer support. is behind that, in my personal opinion. There's nothing more valid than a peer talking to a peer, right? Someone who's been through it, someone who knows, and can have that conversation. And I think we also complicate we can complicate in our head what a peer is. A peer isn't a counselor, they're not a psychiatrist, they're not a savior, they're not God, they're not your wife, they're not my sponsor. A peer is a peer, right? It's just an open conversation. And I think starting with that, and it's a resource, right? Of like, hey, you know, how do we talk about this? How do we have these conversations? I think you just talk about it. You encourage those guys who have been through it to share that at the dinner table, right? Where's some of the most productive and also wild conversations happen, right? Right there at the dinner table. And I've been fortunate enough within, my department that quite often that's a conversation is
Right.
mental health, Um, and our news and notes, for our shift and for other shifts, there's our chiefs put something in there. Hey, if you ever need anything, feel free to reach out, and feel it's just building that normalcy around it and encouraging it, but also not forcing it. When someone's ready, they're ready. um, that's my personal opinion. What I've seen other departments do, I've been fortunate enough to do quite a bit with LA County's peer support team. I've been able to speak for them a few times and speak with them. And close friend of mine, Scott Ross, managed that for many years, is now since retired. Is a lot of departments will go to those peer support leaders and ask them for that advice and how to really create this from not only a policy and procedure standpoint, but get buy-in from SLT and the city or the district. And then that trickles down in the members too, as well as like, hey, if we get support from above for this, that's a good thing. They want to see it, they're going to support it. But if you can find one or two people that are passionate about it and start having conversations, that's kind of the way it started for me. Is and whoever that is, feel free to reach out, and if we could do a Zoom, and I'll come talk with your guys about peer support and what it's done for me personally, and how it's helped me, and how from June 30th, 2013, I still keep in contact with a lot of those peer support members. I got to see one of them in Timber Mesa. He was the BC that was filling in. Like those connections are deep and they last long. And so, reaching out to other resources and finding that kind of model. There's definitely a model there. I think the union presents that model. They have a class that I think is awesome. I was able to go through that in Santa Rosa back, I think it was 2015 maybe, and a lot of value. That shows interest, and I think the more that you have some of these table talk conversations, it'll grow organically. And don't be afraid to reach out and ask people. I think other peer teams love supporting. I've never seen a peer team be like, nah, nah, we're here for each other. That's what we do, and show up and sparking interest in whatever way you can. Sometimes it's a challenge, sometimes it's a fitness challenge that's geared around mental health. How do you want to call it a bait and switch? I don't know. Sometimes I've used that. I'm like, hey, you want to go grab lunch? And I know someone needs to open up, right? And
Right.
and I'm just like, hey, how's the family? How's life going? And you start asking certain questions, and people get around to, they'll open up eventually. And then reaching out to your local professionals and vetting them is big. Making sure that you have people that are, at least culturally competent in what we do and what the job is and what we see. Because I have heard stories of guys going in with clinicians, and like, the clinician's crying more than the firefighter is sharing about what's going on. And one of my buddies was like, well, do I pay you or do you pay me? Because how does this work? Being able to have those vetted resources is big, because the moment they reach out, I will leave it with this: within any mental health, the moment someone reaches out, you have to strike in. That is a moment of opportunity. The time does not wait. What I've learned with running a treatment center, I answered thousands of calls for people calling in to get help. If you do not strike when the iron is hot, that momentum's lost, the questions come in, and things happen. And so, taking that opportunity, and it's okay to say, hey, I don't know, but I'll help you find out. Right. We're super resourceful. We're really good at figuring stuff out, and, rely on some of those bigger departments in the area that may have a team to come in and to help kind of expand that.
Boom. That great question. Great answer. And thanks for breaking it down into the two part and hitting both angles, brother. I really do appreciate it. And a ton of value in that. Jeremy Hump, Humphrey, the hump, he has a question and he says, in your opinion, what is the most misunderstood part of a firefighter's mental health struggles?
That's a that's a great question. Um, and so I probably should have said this in the beginning. Everything I say is opinion of myself. You
Sure,
know, it's
sure.
not an opinion of my fire department. It's not opinion even of my businesses. It's an opinion of Brendon McDonough, and I try and clarify, what that is. And so, what is the biggest misconception in firefighter mental health? What I would say statistically is the alarming rate we are suffering from PTSD, right? And how that is resolved. And so the misconception for the community would be that, um, you know, the part of the job is dangerous, but they see us in different avenues, right? I think one of the biggest things every department faces is like when we're at the grocery store, once in a blue moon, you're gonna get that one person that's like, "Hey, are we paying for you to be here?"
Right.
Right? And that's a valid question, right? That's a valid question. And so, and with that, some people don't see what everything we go through and the cumulative post-traumatic incidences, however you want to say it, PTSD, PTSI.
Sure.
I know a lot of people choose words and I just, try and not think too hard. Uh, so that's for me from a statistic standpoint, I think that's out there. I think the numbers are a little low for what we go through. Um,
Like the reported
personally,
number is lower than what?
yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah.
Making sure I was
No,
clear.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's higher. Uh, and I think that's only because we're still breaking down that stigma. I think they're really accurate though. I think they're well within reason. I don't think it's like egregious or anything. I
Sure,
think
sure,
there's
sure.
just certain people that may not even understand what that is, and they may think that something super traumatic isn't that, right? But for me, a PTSD incident is something that's reoccurring thought, right? So that could be a call that just reoccurs, right? And I know some people might think, well, that's diminishing what the traumatic stuff is, and I get that, but for the way that we treat that, it's the same, right? What's traumatic to you may not be traumatic to me, and what's traumatic to me may not be traumatic to you. And so it's that individual basis of understanding. So I think we're doing an amazing job at educating people of what mental health is. What I've and this is prior to entering the fire service, is one of the big parts of that for me, and it's a really tough line to border for me, is alcohol use. I think alcohol use in the fire service is not statistically where it could be, and I think a lot of people use it as a coping skill.
Sure.
And I think there's a healthy amount of people that can drink too. Like I'm not here to change the world and everyone to be sober. That's not my intention. But those who need it, I believe, could really benefit from it. And I think when you break down a lot of the issues we deal with within the fire service, the calls are the most upfront and in our face, but I
Right.
think the marital, the alcohol, the minutia of working at a department, no department's perfect and everyone has its issues. And so I think people, a lot of what I see when guys come into our program is they have a handful of calls that they really struggle with, and EMDR or polyvagal theory or talk therapy, or we have a multitude, ketamine therapy, a multitude of things to be able to address those.
Sure.
But behind that is the carnage of, some people putting this job first and above their family 100%, right? And there's this wreckage of the past of this tornado of super firefighter that, misses stuff and brings home that stress, and that ends up getting taken out on their family, which isn't duly placed, right?
Sure. Sure.
And that creates marriage tension, and more so, I would say the micro and the macro. The macro is the the horrific things we see and experience,
Sure. The
right?
big calls. The big calls that everybody can point at.
Yeah, they can specifically go to, hey, this drowning, right? This Pete's call, this car wreck, this family member or friend I ran on. We all everyone has them,
Right.
right? This tragedy fire. You can start there, the loss of a fellow firefighter, but the micro of the everyday, the sleep patterns, right?
No,
Changed
organizational
gearing.
betrayal and the psychological safety of the organization, the politics, the ego.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't faced that, and our department's really healthy, but I hear about it, right?
sure,
And I
sure.
see it, and
No,
it's out
absolutely.
there, and there's so much of that is the micro is building and it's compounding in multiple areas that, and we're addressing it. I see it being addressed. The Center for Excellence, I see it within peer teams. The conversations are becoming much deeper than just those macro calls.
Right,
And what I'm really encouraged about and I'm really excited about is starting to address some of those other issues that really have a massive role in who we are as a person.
right on.
Like we're able to stuff that traumatic stuff down pretty good. Like we're pretty good at it, right? Until we're not, and then it's all hell breaks loose. But the micro of the things that you just talked about, the betrayal and the stuff that people experience, and the marital tension, the missing of events, the lack of sleep, ran on somebody 20 times, and you're trying to have that sympathy and empathy for them, and the solution isn't there for whatever reason, and you're trying to navigate that with them, on the 30 minutes you have with that patient, right? I think of like a lot of the mental health calls. um it's tough because someone's in crisis, and like we show up and we do our thing, and our department does a really good job of calling the crisis line. They get people ACT, or we have different services that'll respond to that. And, they'll I've had captains that have called the hospital saying, "Hey, do you guys have a social worker on hand that can meet with them for, services further more than that?" But there's a lot of that gets put into play, for people that I don't think is, seen as an issue.
Sure.
Like, we just kinda sweep it under, and it's like, "Oh, that's just it's a stub toe," right? But if you stub that toe enough, it's gonna break, it's gonna get infected, it's gonna fester, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to that is being addressed, but on a massive level of like, "Hey, we're
The
not only
attention
trying to be
starting to turn and starting to focus on, or not focus on it, but acknowledge that it exists.
Yeah, I'm seeing more and more firefighters get sober. I'm seeing more and more firefighters talk about their marriage struggles. I'm seeing more and more guys get open about, the struggles of being a father.
Right.
Those things that, sometimes we don't discuss or talk about, or out there in the forefront. It's really encouraging for me. And so, long-winded answer all over the place, but
Right. That's a
for
scrap. That's a
more,
scrap. That's what we do.
yeah, it's those things that I am just very, very in tune with myself personally, at least try to be, but also love to share about because, for me, I go to a marriage counselor quarterly. Me and my wife, we check in, we have these conversations. I'm trying to improve my communication skills, and it's only making me a more effective firefighter when I'm able to not bring work home and not bring home to work, right? And it's not that I shut this wall, it's that I'm resolving these things, whatever they may be, so that these stressors are alleviated so that I'm in the best thought process possible. And I think everyone in this job deserves that, right? That goes into that company officer making those decisions is, in all of us down to the firefighter level, the more stress that we can alleviate going on to the job, the better decision making is going to be,
Right on.
and everyone's stress is different, right? I was talking with a buddy of mine today of like, I was like, "Hey, man, what?" He was stressed about a speeding ticket. He got a speeding ticket. It's the first one in like 10 years.
Okay.
I'm like, and for him, like, and I've never. This guy runs multiple businesses, like takes care of his family, stand up, astounding citizen, right? Like, haven't ever seen him stressed in 10 years. But like his personal duty to be a good, upstanding citizen, that's what hurt in that moment of getting that speeding ticket. For me, I'd have been like, it's a ticket, whatever. But we're all unique in what really drives us, right? Deeper into how our neural network works, of like his past was he did some time, and so his future is having any interaction with the law being of the utmost of him being a citizen that is giving back.
Mm,
And I've watched him do it for 12 years, being an amazing man, dedicate his life to helping others, to helping his family, being a great father, being a great community member. And so, like, we all to say all that, we all suffer differently, and that stuff carries into our day. And so how do we make that a common conversation of like, maybe it's little, maybe this appears to be little, but it may be big for that person for whatever reason. Our brain, we don't get to choose how our brain stores that. There could be childhood trauma related to it. There could
Hmm.
be trauma of the past. There could be neglect. There could be whatever related to it that brings something simple to today that'd be like, why am I stressing over this? And so I think having those conversations and opening it further than just traumatic calls, which is happening, is great in an amazing direction that we're going in, with sleep studies that are coming out, and the physical side of it too is massive. It all combines together of how well we operate, and how well we're in tune with the job of like a car. The car
Right.
has multiple fluids in it. There's multiple gears, multiple parts, components, the same as we do. And we have to, from a clinical side, the biopsychosocial model of looking at everything: finances, marriage, spirituality, trauma, past trauma, gifts, talents, right?
Wow.
Stress.
Yeah.
It just compounds.
Just
Yeah,
this holistic, it's just one part being out of whack, compounds any other part as it feeds on itself and gets more and more, I don't know a more clinical term than out of whack.
Yeah, there's one little last piece I'll share on this, and there's a
Go,
bunch of
go.
questions, but we have 400 billion microbiomes in our stomach, right? And what we eat and what we put in our body, there's more power speaking from our gut to our brain than our brain to our gut on mentally and physically how we feel, right? So nutrition is in this conversation of like what you put in dramatically and drastically impacts how you feel. And depending on your gene type and how you process, vitamin A, or if you can, or if you got to take a supplement to process that, or if you're not digesting it through nutrition, it's crazy how that impacts your mood. There's studies and it's wild that they're doing fecal transplant. And I know this because I have an autistic daughter, and it's with an autism and depression of like, they have a unhealthy gut, and there's people that take little pills, right, that are healthy poop, essentially,
Right.
that heals their stomach and is, for certain kids becoming verbal, or certain adults, their depression is clinically treatable that a medication couldn't touch. And so there's that one little piece of nutrition that plays this massive role that I think the fire service is starting to explore, and that is powerful, right?
Very
Of
huge.
like, hey, it's not just stress that gives us heart attack, and it's not just eating bad food. It's the myriad of things that we deal with and go through and have in life that contributes to that. So, yeah, 20-minute answer for a 1-minute question.
No, it's a hey, brother. That's what the scrap is all about, rabbit trails and rabbit holes and deep dives. And it was a beautiful answer. So do not sell yourself short. My man McGinn coming at you says, do you see it harder for firefighters to talk about PTSD? Because normally, traditionally, it's associated with the military and war and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So personal experience, like when that tragedy happened, like someone was like, "Hey man, you might have PTSD." I'm like, "Dude, that's for our soldiers. Like, don't even come on." I grew up next to Camp Pendleton when 9/11 happened. I was a young kid in elementary school. I watched men and women go overseas. I watched friends lose their fathers and their mothers, and I watched caskets come home. And like that was not something I was going to identify with, right?
Right.
Until I was encroached into that veteran community. And Clint Bruce, he's a Navy SEAL, amazing man, amazing father, one of my best mentors in my life. Did a lot of things in the SEAL program. Was a his claim to fame, he was Ray Lewis's backup for the Ravens. He was like, I'm gonna go to the SEAL teams, right? Playing in the NFL, built amazing nonprofits that have raised millions for first responders, veterans. Like just one of those guys to me that I'm like, man, I want to be like him,
Right. Right.
And he was like, hey, dude, I think you might be a little messed up, and I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you might have, and he's from Texas. He's like, you might have some of the PTSDs, and I'm like, That's for you guys." He's like, I think you pretty much earned that one." And that was a big eye opener for me. It
Sure.
was a big moment. And funny story, you know, got to meet a former president, and it was in Texas, and Clint was there, and Clint knew him through this guy knows everybody. He's telling him my story, and he's like, "Yeah, I remember that." He's like, "You doing all right?" And he was like, "Yeah, he's good. He's one of us. He's got the PTSD, you know." And it's just having that common conversation about it, of like not making fun of it, but just normalizing that it's okay to have these things. It's okay that no one in this world is going to go untouched, right? Fire service, police, veterans, civilians, no one goes through this world untouched of mental health. It is impossible. We are not designed that way. We are too humane. We have too many feelings and emotions. My personal opinion, designed from God, is we're supposed to have those. And so, when I first spoke, um, it was in California, and it was a conference, and there was multitude of things going on, but one of them was a mental health topic. And I remember seeing like maybe 20 or 30 people in the room, and we're having this conversation, and there's people that were sent there that probably were sent to be a liaison, to be there, that they were like, I want to be in this, right?
Sure, sure.
And there's people that wanted to be there, and
Right.
all walks of life. And then to go there 5 years later and to see some of the biggest chiefs in our country present, right? Like LA County, LA City, San Francisco, Sacramento, San Diego, to see them present and in tune and phones down, watching this, the culture has shifted, right? And it's I don't think anyone in the fire service can deny that PTSD is a thing. Now we are looking at how are we treating it and what is working best. And that's what we're figuring out with peer support, right? Different centers across the country that complete different niches, right? As well as a lot of departments starting to take over their EAP, you know, in a sense, right? They're working with
Sure. No,
clinicians that
absolutely. Yeah.
now run their EAP. So they have competent clinicians that are there that are advocating for those things. And, one of the big bills in 2015 in Arizona was the Tiger Act of, first responder that we lost. And so now if you can tie a traumatic call to something, you get instantly, I think it's like 5 or 10 sessions. So if you can say, hey, this is the call. I need to see a clinician, you go see a clinician. No questions asked, it's paid for. And that movement is happening, and it's this scary topic that's out there, but also
Now, is
a
that on the
topic
state
that
level that occurred, the Tiger
that's
Act?
on the state level of
Okay, okay.
Arizona. Yep.
Yeah, no,
And
no, it's
so,
phenomenal.
and I know other states are trying to implement simpler things and similar things. And I know like California, they're big on right now of peer support protection, of like what's say like almost HIPAA within
Right,
peer
right,
support,
right.
right? And so these movements are happening to really solidify this 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 admission of struggling for protection, right? Of, hey, the fear was if I admit this, then I'm going to lose my job, right? And I would say, fortunately for me, I've ran into a lot of firefighters that have been at great departments that they're supportive of them going and getting treatment or going and getting counseling. And I'm sure there's some out there that have some differences, but I think in general the needle is moving towards the right direction. And I don't think it's not that we wear it as a badge of honor. I think some guys can get into that
Sure.
of that, and that becomes a part of their identity,
Right.
right? And I think that can be detrimental,
Detrimental to
is if
others who yeah, absolutely.
yeah, if that's all you identify, right? Is like, the identifiers in my life are the best things. And a part of that is, I have PTSD, I'm an alcoholic, I'm in recovery, and so there's this identity that's there. And so I think there's this balance of pushing for it, but also having this understanding of like, hey, this is just a PTSD is just a starting point. Like that term is the worst it has gotten for you. And the goal is to move that mark to post traumatic growth, right? Or to recovery, or to, an awakening, however people put that. So that's just a benchmark of where we begin, not where we end.
Right on.
Right. And so I think that's something that's tough for people of like, man, I'm gonna have to identify with this for the rest of my life. And I get it. When I was 2 weeks before counseling, a gun in my mouth, right? Like ready to pull the trigger, screaming, like, do it, do it, do it, and thank God I didn't. I didn't think my life was going to get any better. I thought The nightmares would never stop, the anxiety would never go away, the fear would never be there. All I was gonna be was this mentally ill person, right? That was the thought that I had. And and through counseling and through with my peers and people speaking into me, that is far from the truth. Like, I'm so distant from that diagnosis even, and that diagnosis carried into me getting hired. That's there. It's not going anywhere, right?
Right.
But that and it comes into play, right? They, HR leadership, they have to make decisions, and but the growth that shows, right, is that we can change, we can overcome this, and doesn't mean we still don't have our struggles, but if we make that our entire reality, then that's what it becomes. And
Yeah.
for people that are caught in that cycle, I understand, and it's scary, and it is so far off to see any light, right? And what I would say is, don't quit, you're needed, And I couldn't see it in that moment, but I just had to listen to that from other people saying like, "Hey, you have value, you have something to offer." I'm like, "You what? What do I have to offer to the world is this broken man because I have this PTSD, right?" What we what I you don't get to see until you feel it, right? I didn't get to feel the relief till one of my first counseling sessions and had an epiphany of this massive amount of survivor's guilt that I felt of essentially we're doing EMDR. I'm gonna go down, and this is what the scrapp's about, right? Is
Yeah.
I got these buzzers in my hand, and I'm like, yeah, buzz, 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 counseling, whatever. I'm 24. I'm full of vinegar, full of testosterone and ego. And the counselor, she looks at me, and we had built enough rapport. She's like, "Hey, do you want to get better? Because like you have to give me something. Like you have to work through this. Like there's no way around this. There isn't." In my mind, this is how I heard it. She didn't say this, but like, this is not Monopoly. Like, you don't get to skip jail and collect 200 and go. Like, that's not it. Like, you have to talk about this and process it to feel the relief that you want, to be the man that you say that you want to be. She said that. She said, "You want to be a better father? We have to go through this." Right. So I'm like, all right, cool. You're going to get it. Like, you're getting these, this PTSD trauma, whatever. And through that, I'm telling her about Yarnell, the tragedy. I'm like letting her have it in short, in a respectful way, but like expressing this. And she looks at me and she goes, "Hey, how much did you believe in your captain superintendents?" 100%. She's like, "If you were up on the hill, would you have followed him down?" Yeah, everyone else did. That's what everyone thought the best decision at the time was. Yeah. She's like, "Well, then why?" Oh, the next question, she said, "Would you," and this is culturally competent, right? This her son was in the military and he had trauma and she knew. She was like, "Would you ever disobey an order?" And I was like, "No." Like, unless it was life, no. She's like, "Well, didn't you say you were ordered to leave your lookout spot?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." Like, I don't know why, but that was the moment for me that I was like finding clarity in I didn't choose to live. That choice was made for me by my superior, right? And so for me to sit here and say, I wish I'd have been with them, or I wish I would have died instead of them. If you watch the movie, there's a scene where I almost get caught. Like, I wish that moment would have been I died, and maybe that would have changed their trajectory. That's the reoccurring in my head for 2 years,
Right.
right? And it was in that moment that, like, that was a decision made above me and beyond me. I didn't get to that was not my choice to make, you know?
Yeah.
And it anyone could have told me that. I had been told 1,000 times, millions of times, "You were meant to live." That's just what happened that day, and I couldn't comprehend it, and I couldn't shake the feeling of I wanted to be there with them.
Right.
I couldn't, looking at my 3, 4-year-old daughter, my fiance, our my other daughter, I couldn't shake that, and in that moment, that was shooken for me, And that is that growth and that freedom that is within there that, like, yeah, I may have this diagnosis, but this isn't what defines me in the future. I don't have to attach myself to this term in this point in my life when I found closure in it. It's like, in the rooms of AA, oh, I'm an alcoholic. And some people that's what works for them. For me, I'm in recovery, I don't forget that I still have this issue that I need to work on, right? And if I don't do maintenance on those traumatic things, and if I don't do upkeep, the same as I do with my vehicles, the same as I do with my house, then yeah, it can rear its ugly head.
Mm.
But I'm not in that state anymore. That's not me. That's not Brendon McDonough of 2025. It's not me of 2024. It's not me when I left that counseling room, when and that is what I hope people can find is encouragement and, hey, that's just the start line. And the start line's pretty muddy and it's pretty ugly, but the finish is beautiful.
Mm.
The finish is the piece that we didn't see. And even through that process, I didn't think life would get as good as it is today. Coley, I didn't think I'd be able to live life like this. I didn't think I could be in crowds. I didn't think I could take my family to Disneyland and be okay. I didn't think
Mhm.
I could be next to a fire. I didn't think I could eat red meat again, man. Like those things that impacted me, and I seen and witnessed, like it effed me up, right? And I didn't think that was possible. I didn't think I'd be able to be a good husband or a good father, and I'm still flawed. I'm still human, but like I have by far surpassed who I ever thought I could be. And so I've stopped putting a box or a limit in who Brennan is. I don't want to do that. I don't want to limit a God that I believe in who can perform miracles and is all knowing, all powerful, all loving, and has redeemed my life and turned a wretched mess into something, which I think and my family thinks is pretty cool,
Right on.
Um, I don't want to put that in a box anymore. And so, yeah, that's something, if I had a list of 100 things I identify, it's on there, but it's way down at the bottom, and it's just another reminder of what is true, right? Is that there is hope out there. And I've
Right on.
seen other people do it. And that's what made it for me was like I watched other people talk to me, in the fire service, in the military that said, hey, this is possible, man. But it's your choice, And don't some people it's a different path. Some people it's longer, shorter. Some people don't come unscathed. There are things that will stick, right? There is some anxiety, there's some depression that does stick with people,
Sure.
but it's that constant maintenance. So I don't want to take away and I don't want to paint a picture of like, oh, my life's perfect, but it's at a point that I can choose what I do now. If I want to choose and sit and be in that negative moment, that's a conscious choice for me, not for
Sure.
everyone, but I have the ability and the tools and the wherewithal and the people around me that I don't have to.
You've had the
And so
growth
when
to where
we
you can, yeah, achieve. Yeah.
yeah, and it's being found in the fire service because I've got a guy that went through our program. He's a firefighter within Arizona. Can't share his name, HIPAA, right? He probably wouldn't care, but he's now becoming a clinician. He's going to retire a clinician as a firefighter
Nice.
who is sober, who has walked through it, who has had the micro, the macro, and is out there chasing what I'm trying to chase is sharing this with other people because I don't want to see another person die, right? I don't want that number, that statistic for suicide to rise in the fire
Right.
service. So I want to see it drop. I want to get it to zero. I want, you know, divorce rates to get to zero. I want financial issues to get to zero. I want those things to go down. And I have to share that. I have to talk about it. I got to be vulnerable. I got to share the shit that bothered me, that haunted me, that, you know, waking up in the middle of the night screaming, my wife wondering if I'm going to hit her because I'm just right in like that's gone. That's not there anymore.
That's all.
I got a CPAP machine, dude. I sleep well most of the
Right.
time. Like in Yeah, because there's a million other questions.
No, no, hey, brother, believe me, the value you've brought with the vulnerability and the honesty is unbelievable. And I mean, there's already like Hump even said he's going to take this scrap and send it to his entire state peer support team and get it out to everyone. I hope everybody does. Anybody who has a connection, get it out there and spread the message because it's powerful. I'm going to shift on you and go to some other questions here. Jesse
Yeah,
Ryberg wants to know: is there any chance you will write a follow-up book about your new chapter?
there's been a lot of thought about it, and for me, the timing of the book was what, like, the mainstream wanted, if that makes sense, like,
Hmm.
what the publishing and I wanted that, to the extent I wanted that. I remember, um gosh, I don't wanna give another long answer.
Go. Hey, this
Uh,
is the scrap, brother. Don't worry about
yeah,
length.
yeah, when the original book came out and the original movie idea came out, I reached out to Marcus Luttrell, Lone Survivor, and, because he had just written a book and just movie premiered, right? I sent him a message, and, for a while, nothing came back, and I was like, "This guy's super busy." It was to one of his team members, and they got back with me like, "Hey, we are so sorry. We've been meaning to connect with you outside of your message. We are gonna find a way to get a hold of you. We'll be in Phoenix." And so anyways, long story short, got to meet him. He put me in touch with Clint Bruce, and I had a conversation with Marcus as he said, "Hey, man, this is heavy, but, um" in short, like, it is your job. Like, someone else is either gonna write it, someone else is either gonna make the movie. So I didn't wanna do it. I was like, "Man, I don't wanna do this." He's like, "All you're gonna be doing is a disservice to honoring your brothers." And I was like, "Alright, done." So in that moment, that's the book that was written, and I was just finding counseling and sobriety as we wrapped that book up, And so I gave the writer like 6 or 4 months out of a 9-month counseling stint, essentially. I said, "Hey, if there's anything in here you want to use, feel free." Every counseling note, like every
Oh,
detail,
wow.
right? And it wasn't able to make it in there as much as I would have liked. And so I feel like I'm at a time in my life in the next few years that I feel like a follow-up would be good. Um, and it's just finding the right timing and the
Sure.
energy and I need a ghostwriter. I can't, that's a lot for me to sit there, and I'm too ADHD. Like, it really is.
I
Uh, yeah, and
yeah,
medication, like, is not good either for me. So, it is. It's something that I've talked about. There's been some ideas thrown around, been
yeah,
approached by a few different people. And I think now I have enough to share to really give a lot of depth into something that it would be worth them purchasing, you know, and reading to where it would be like we talked about earlier. I don't want to, I want to honor my brothers, but I also don't want to be repetitive in something. And I want to bring them forward with that and honor them, but also give light into, what I've learned over the last, a little over a decade of this process. And so there's a few people that have reached out for documentaries, you know, uh, some people out of England, they work with Netflix and Discovery. And so I think if the right person is found in that, that'd probably be the time that I would, take that energy because I'm already going to be reprocessing the last,
sure, sure.
decade, that it'd be a good time to, get those things down and write them out and put pen to paper and produce something that I feel like would be of worth. I wanted to make sure there's enough value in it,
No, no, I think
of
without a doubt.
being able to
Just from this
yeah,
brief insight into your mindset, into the mindset of your journey and where you're currently at in your journey, and the I want to say the healthy perspective that is usually not, I don't want to say not seen, but normally the it's all surrounded with doom and gloom and the dark, like
yeah,
what was your words, the gritty, dirty beginning of it. But there's
yeah,
so much
yep,
beauty in what you're saying today, and that really is the best part of this story. If I can use
yeah,
the
like
word
the
beauty.
Hallmark story, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we can, I mean, it's
That's
not sexy, but yeah,
yeah,
100%, 100%.
yeah. And so there's definitely that down the road, probably in the next, I'd say, probably max 5 years.
Excellent. I look forward to it now, and it's in the scrap, so uh, that means it's going to happen. Has to happen.
Yeah, now that and that
Now it has
was
to. It didn't have to before, but now it does.
you know, and that brings up a thought too, is like with the fire services, people would ask me like, "Would you ever go back?" And I was like, "Yeah, I could go back." But like, could I really? You know? Like I could sit here and say I could, but could I really? You know? And it's like this book, right? You said it's in the scrap. Like now for me mentally, it's like I can sit here and say I could write a book, but am I really going to?
Right.
Like, can I do it? Right? And so that now that's in my head of like, okay, that's on the box and the notes of like, put your money where your mouth is, Brennan. Like just internally
Right.
of
And
like,
you're
you
on the
say you can
job.
do it. Yeah. Can you do it? You know, is that the reality? And, you know, is that you just dodging what you maybe could do and you're afraid that you couldn't do it, you know? Because there's that big fear too of like, maybe I can't. And that was an acceptance I had to come to as well. Thankfully that's not it, but
Right.
you know, the books that'll be another target of like, well, can you do it? You know, that'll be me in my head all day tomorrow.
Greg
I'll be
Carter
up
had a
tonight.
question for you. Greg Carter had a question for you earlier on that I wanted to throw at you here. It says, he said, okay, I'll start with a lighthearted one. He says, I can see the excitement in your face from going interior, but you also brought your experience from wildland. So which one do you like best? Interior or the wildland?
Uh that's a great question. Um, you know, one of the things I learned early on in like one of our first MCSs in the academy is like how fast this goes. You know, most bread and butter structure fires, you know, you're in and out in 25 minutes. Like you're that's it, you know. Either you've got the knockdown, you've got the job done, or it's a defensive, right? That's my limited knowledge. For wildfires, unless it's an initial attack, which the two that I've had on the job have both been that, so we've been able to get around them right then and there. You just see a lot of fire behavior in wildfires. It is so impressive, and it is such a machine what the wildland fire community does with such little resources. And in the fire service, in the structure side too. And so I love them both equally for different reasons. I love, you know, the structure side of the fast pace, the but also the methodical like it's fast in how we're moving, but the thought process is slow and methodical because of
Ooh, I like that.
training and because of leadership, right? Of like my first fire felt extremely fast to me, right? Um it did. It was like, holy cow, that's but it also felt so slow because there's moments I'm just taking in. And then, you know, the part on both of like overhaul, right? Or mopping up, like that's not the most enjoyable.
Sure.
You know, but it's a part of the job. That's the cost at it. And then there's the back of the mind too of, you know, that I try and share with community members of like, we are only excited if we have to. You know, that's the mindset that I want to keep. That I only get excited when I have to, not because I get to, right? Or because the potential is there. Because that displacement of that family member
Sure.
in any extent, right? Ruin contents, a kitchen fire, is a lot. And so I try and keep that mentality with both of, you know, wildfires are destructive, structure fires are destructive. And so only do I get this feeling of excitement of being able to make a difference, you know. And I felt a lot of people probably feel that way. Of course, you know, we want fires and stuff like that, but in a perfect world, they, you know, people wouldn't lose homes and lose valuables and sentimentals and things of that such. And that was instilled in me in early in the fire service, you know, kind of segueing, but this is what we do and what it is. I was on a fire down south Arizona. We just got our butts handed to us all day. We had lost, you know, numerous homes. And we're sitting at dinner table. It's 9 o'clock, and I'm eating, and you know, we're just having conversation. It's kind of somber, but it's not down. And I look over and I see some people in civilian clothes, and you know, there's IC members, and maybe I don't know. It's one of my first few fires in the wildfire arena, and I asked my squad boss, I'm like, "Hey, what are they?" You know, and he just looks at me, and he and not not with any attitude or anything. He just very calmly was like, those are the people who lost their home. They have nowhere to go tonight. And I was sick to my stomach, you know? I was absolutely sick to my stomach that I'm sitting here eating dinner, you know,
Yeah.
um, with what I felt like more to give, right? In that moment. And you know, got up, couldn't half my food's done. I've worked all day, 16-hour shift. I should eat, right?
Right.
And I couldn't because I felt guilty. And that's something I try and carry forward with me of, like, hey, this is an exciting job. We train so much for it. Um, but I only get excited when I get to make a difference,
Mm,
not dwell on it or dream on it,
right. No, no, and
or
it's a powerful mindset. It is it's a
Ye
phenomenal
and
mindset.
I think many people in the fire service carry that, but that just kinda clicked in my head when that question was asked of, what do I like more? Yeah, I love both, to be honest. I love both. They both carry such a weight and a heaviness, of responsibility. I think I love structure fires more right now just because of the growth for knowledge, and I
Sure.
have millions of miles to grow on wildfire too.
Sure.
But the chance that I'm gonna see a fire like what I've seen in my past experience of being on a hotshot crew in our community is hopefully slim to none, right? And so, just those little memories, those little reflections back on, how to make a difference moving forward is something that excites me.
I love it, brother. So with that being said, I love to ask. I don't know if you're a reader. I don't know if you're a reader. You said but I love to ask book or books that you think firefighters should read. Doesn't have to be firefighter related, but what books do you think firefighters should read?
Oh man, I'm not a big reader.
Right on.
Uh, and that's something I've been trying to improve on in my life, you know?
Yeah.
If you're married and if you're a believer, there's a book called The Love Dare.
The
And
Love Dare, like Truth or Dare.
yeah.
Okay.
No, it's all
No, I just want to make
about,
sure I had the right word. That's all.
yeah, The Love Dare. It's all about building a deeper connection with your spouse and how to honor God through that. That's been a highly impactful book in my marriage. And that's the first one that comes to mind.
Beautiful.
The second one, I read just a few books,
No, no.
and, I read the Bible and I read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I read a daily reflection book, within recovery, but also spirituality, and more or less, I try and read more on, like, I'm getting into it because of Kyle Romigus, who was on your show of like the SFSRI data, and
Yes.
then I think one of the chiefs is in here, Eric Merrill. He's big on that data too, and he introduced that to the academy. He was the training chief for the neighboring department, and I've known him forever. He taught my academy. Great dude. Go
No, phenomenal
Cornhuskers.
resource. The stuff they put out, unbelievably good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
unbelievable.
that stuff I'm trying to really dive in and start to look into. I think that's more tangible stuff for me, those kind of like, those classes that I could do over a few days or those reads that I can comprehend over a few days and take it to my captain and peers and, kind of reflect on with has been pretty awesome.
Beautiful.
That's kind of the bread and butter, but I have been listening to the weekly scrap and trying to look at some books.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Yeah, that you win right there. Max
Yeah,
points.
I got a list of them that I'm looking for. Some of those old ones that, kind of provide history.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
there's a lot out there, but yeah, not a that's probably the one area improving in my life that I feel like I've struggled with the most is reading more, to be honest. That is something that I read and study, right?
Sure,
But as
sure.
far as for enjoyment, it's not something that I go to.
You're not a you're
Um,
not you wouldn't describe yourself as an avid reader, right?
nah,
No,
but
no, and
I'd
that's
like to be.
no, no, and I want to encourage you because I think it's one of the keys to life. But that's my own personal
Yeah.
passion, and so anybody who knows me knows I would say that over and over. I think what you suggested is phenomenal. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing it. Now we do a thing on here called the 5 questions for firefighters. And the 5 questions
Hmm.
for firefighters, we ask them every scrap. They change throughout time. You're on a pretty new version of them. They're called the the 5 questions for firefighters version 5.0, and there are no correct answers, just your opinions. And then I
Okay.
pass out the points with the help of the audience. So, Donut, Brendon McDonough, are you ready for the 5 questions for firefighters?
I think so.
Here we go. Number 1, you can do anything in the world except be a firefighter. What would you choose to be?
Mm, man. Probably a psychologist with a study in neuroscience.
So you'd be like Huberman on just just a big badass
Yeah.
doctor who understood the human mind.
Yeah. I
I love
think
it.
that would be I think that would be it. At the end of the day, it'd have to be helping people.
Right on, right
So,
on.
like a clinician in the military, pastor maybe,
Okay.
but the first thing that comes to mind is that.
Okay. No, I love it. I'll give it
My
easy nice
captain just
points for
texted me. He
yeah.
said professional chocolate moose eater. We had a moose
Okay.
eating competition the other night. It didn't end farewell for me, but
Oh, so you are not the professional? Is that what I'm getting?
no, someone
Okay.
beat me by like 3 cups.
Oh wow.
But yeah, I would say a psychologist with a study in neuroscience would probably that I if I were to have a second career after the fire service, that's probably what I'd start gearing towards.
Love it. And someone out there will
Yeah.
probably correct me on what Huberman actually does, but phenomenal, phenomenal max points answer. I love especially the part where you said it's helping people in some way, shape, or form. Number 2, it's Jobtown. It's time. You are en route and responding like the scene from Backdraft, slapping that tape into that cassette deck. What song are you playing while en route?
Man, that is tough. This is the part I should have studied for. Oh, ooh, man, I got like 3 though. There's only
Hey,
1.
here's the deal. You get to play one, so I'm waiting to hear your answer. There is something funny about
Yeah.
this. I'll share this real quick. I read a meme the other day, which made me think of the 5 questions. And it was, I was doom scrolling and got caught in it. And it said, basically, it said, you have 6 minutes left. What song are you putting on repeat? Right? You have 6 minutes
Okay.
left to live, is what it was. 6 minutes left to live. What song are you putting on repeat? And I was like, "Oh, that's pretty. That's like a 5 questions for firefighters type question." But then one of the comments said, "I'm spending 6 minutes trying to figure out which song to play." So, oh, I got you.
There?
I got you. I got you. You back?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we hear you good. Can you hear us?
Okay. That's a little. Oh man, that is not cool.
You can make sign language at us. Can you hear us? Hold on, I'm seeing. I think he lost his earbuds and he's going phone. Mic check, buying time. So yeah, the Instagram while he figures out whether he
Trying.
get his ears back, I absolutely connected with the whole 6 minutes left to live. What song are you picking? And yeah, that was absolutely 100% how I felt about it. How you doing, Donut? Any luck? He may not
I
get
think I'm
back.
there.
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay. Yeah.
You're back?
Yep, I can hear you. I'm not gonna get these back, but that's okay. Um
What's your song?
my song probably song to be honest, man. If we're looking at 6 minutes left, that
No,
would
that's
probably
that's
be
separate,
it.
but
But it's Jobtown, so yeah. Jobtown, probably AC/DC Thunderstruck. That's probably it.
Thunderstruck.
Going
Okay.
with the classic.
Hey, it's hard to beat.
Yeah.
That's one of the
Yep.
best intros of
That's
all time, and rolling down
yeah. Or
screaming down.
Dropkick Murphys, like
Oh, just one. It's Thunderstruck, right? Is that what you're going with?
yeah, it is. It is.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
making
it.
sure,
Yep. I'm
making
gonna
sure.
play
We're having a
next
little
time.
bit of lag issue. Okay, excellent. Max points for Thunderstruck. ACDC will. I think if you want to just easy throw max points, just throw some ACDC out there. depending on the call. But number 3, tomorrow morning, you wake up and you are the chief of department. Now, I understand you are a probationary firefighter, so you can, but you can do whatever you want. What is the first change you are making? And it can be a fictional fire department. It doesn't have to be Prescott.
Yeah. And this is going to be cliche, but and this is because of the great leadership I've had. Is I'd ask the members first. That's the most important piece, right? And that's I think that would be my question: is what do the members want? What do they need? I can have a million ideas,
Sure.
but if I were to wake up tomorrow, I think it'd be arrogant of me to make a decision that I didn't understand the full recourse of, right? Yeah.
Just
I know that.
honestly, initially I want to be like, no, that's too easy of a soft answer. That's not a good. But honestly, after listening to you talk all night, I think that's a very authentic answer coming from you, and it's a phenomenal answer for servant based leadership of figuring out what your people need. Great answer. Max points. Easy max
Yeah.
points. Number 4. This
You know
one's
what? I got one. Tillers. Everybody
Everybody gets
Everyone
a tiller.
gets a tiller if they want one.
You get a tiller. They get a tiller.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Handing out tillers.
That was even better, honestly. But that's an easier. These are the easy ways to get max points is pass out tiller trucks.
Yeah.
But you are 3 for 3 max points. Yeah, they said double points. Number 4. This one's on the clock. You get 1 minute. 1 minute to answer this question. You are riding backwards on the rig. You are the backstep firefighter. It's a 4-man engine, or you can make it a truck if you want, but it's a 4-man apparatus. Who is your dream company to ride with? You get 1 driver, 1 officer, and 1 backseat firefighter.
Only because they fought structure fire, right?
Okay.
Is the 3 dads that were firemen of my lost brothers. Yeah, there's 3 dads that were structure firefighters. I would choose those 3. Kevin Mojek.
Yeah.
Danny Parker and Mike McKenzie. Yeah, I'd choose those 3. That would be the 3.
I don't know. Easy. 4 for 4. And it takes us to the final question, which is heavy fire, searchable space. Would you rather be assigned to the nozzle or first in on VES?
Oh, man. VES. Yeah.
And that officially makes it
Yeah.
he's 5 for 5 max points. Brendon McDonough. That officially puts, I don't even know what number this is, 321 scraps in the books. My brother, you absolutely brought it tonight. I can't say thank you enough for spending your evening with us here on the scrap.
I'm honored. Thank you.
If someone wants to reach out to you, if someone wants to get in touch with you, what is the best way to go about doing so?
Social media, Instagram or Facebook. That is probably the best way to get a hold of me. Instagram is donut_928. And then I've got a personal page and a professional page on Facebook that's just my name. Either one. I think that's the best way to get a hold of me. I give my email, but it's so long, it's not even... It's too long. Yeah.
Right on. Social media, best way to get in touch with you. Please do so. Again, I can't thank you enough for spending your evening, your story, your vulnerability, your insight. It was a powerful scrap, and it's going to bring value to the fire service. I have no doubt about that. With that being said, there's 2 things I like to do at the end. Is the first one is a challenge to the firefighters that are listening. between this scrap and the next scrap, a challenge for them to complete before the next scrap comes. From you to them, what is Brendon's challenge to them from the scrap?
Yeah, go if you're someone who's experienced this mental health, right? Go share that with somebody, right? If you've seen the other side of this, go share that with somebody. And if you are someone who is questioning whether to reach out for help, is to go have that conversation
Mm.
and be open to help. I've met some of the toughest and the baddest in the country. I've this I will brag on and bring a little bravado to. Of I've had the absolute honor of meeting some of the finest firemen and firefighters who are women too in this country, and they are all in the same pace of taking care of themselves, right? From New York to LA, everything in between and around the world. Go get the help because you deserve it, and no problem's too small or too big to be resolved, right? That is what we do, and you can't do it alone. In the fire service, we are problem fixers. That's what we do. We show up at people's worst times, and we need someone to show up in our worst time that we don't comprehend. I didn't get to this understanding of mental health through uh, education. I got through it through going through it, and other people deserve that, and those that are listening that may be struggling, you deserve that too. And so that would be my challenge, two-part. If you've experienced this hope, go share it. Make sure you share it. And if you are looking for that hope, go seek it until you find it, because it is there. I can guarantee that.
Powerful. Thank you. On par with the scrap, his challenge delivers. So I hope you will take that challenge. I hope you will run with it. Possibly more than any other challenge that's been dished so far. I hope you will reach out for it. The final thing is someone that you think should be on the scrap or back on the scrap. We've had a lot of people, and you can't possibly know all of them. So I always like to give that out. But someone you think needs to be on the scrap.
Man, that's a great question. Someone that I think would do it. There's some guys that wouldn't. They're like, nah, I'm not doing that.
Right. Sure.
The first person that comes to mind is Jim Bernecka.
Jim Burnett.
He's out of Ohio. Amazing dude on the within mental health. Has an amazing story. He does a conference every year, Beaver Creek, Ohio. And he's just a wealth of information and just such a soft-spoken dude. He's a guy who's spoken into my life. I think I mean, I've got a list of people that I think, but that's the first one that I know.
That's what I
does
wanted.
podcast.
Who instantly pops up to the top?
So, yeah, he instantly pops up to the top of just a solid conversation. Very, very, just very from the heart, of when he speaks and how he speaks. But there's a million people, man.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
But no, I love it. It's a perfect answer. With all that being said, I will do my housekeeping. Go to patreon.com, become a vigilante, the Vigilantes. The Discord is amazing. It's where we hang out. It's where so much goes on in the Discord. It's so much fun. If you're not a vigilante, why not become a part today? One of the best parts about being a vigilante is you get to go to the after party, which is happening in the next few minutes. Brendon is invited, and that's where we come in. And if the guest shows up, we roast the guest depending on how they did in the scrap. And of course, it's never a roast. Here's the spoiler. It's the mild roast.
That's all right.
We threaten a roast every time, and it rarely occurs unless the guest actually starts roasting vigilantes. But show up, you get your chops busted. Next week, coming up on the scrap, it is Anthony Castros coming back on. I'm super excited. It's also where we are going to announce the winner of the FDIC giveaway, the Pay It Forward Pass that the Vigilantes selected from all of the submissions. We will be announcing it on Anthony Andoni Castros scrap next week on Tuesday. And there is a surprise. I'm not ready. I'll probably be revealing it tomorrow when it hits social media, but there is a surprise about Mr. Castros's scrap next week. So you guys can, I'll leave that as a cliffhanger. With all that being said, I'll quit talking. Audience, I love you. Man, tonight it was a powerful, powerful scrap. And I know most of us just sat there and listening, me included, until had trouble speaking. And then it's, again, audience, thank you for showing up each and every week live and asking phenomenal questions from the phenomenal guests. You guys make the scrap magical, and without you, it wouldn't exist. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for showing up. Remember, mutts don't scrap. I hope the tones stay silent unless it is burning. This job is not safe. So stay smart out there.